Aquí comienza Edúcate en Casa, el espacio radial de la Secretaría de Educación de Barranquilla para llevar diversión, aprendizaje y nuevos contenidos a los estudiantes de la ciudad. Escúchanos todos los lunes y miércoles a las 9:30 de la mañana en Itza Radio 106.6 FM para que estemos conectados siempre.
Welcome to English Radio Barranquilla, an English program on Itza Radio. Module 3, Experiences and Accomplishments. In this module, we will share some stories that inspire us and we'll talk about the importance of English as a tool for achieving our goals. Lesson 21. Reaching our goals requires effort, perseverance, and a good strategy. Another factor that is becoming more important every day is to master English fluently. In a competitive environment like today's, and with qualified young people, speaking languages is part of the path that will lead to accomplish your dreams. Today, we have a very special guest, someone who has worked very hard to achieve his goals. Passion, training, discipline, and adaptability are needed to achieve our goals. To obtain this, one of the best options is starting from the earliest ages. We surveyed some people and asked them what inspired them, and this is what they said.
The one who inspired me the most is my dad, because he's all the time working for us and trying to achieve all his goals and trying to be better all the days. The second person in the world who inspired me the most is my bigger sister, because she's always working hard for all her goals and trying to help people all the time, because she's a doctor. And it's really nice how much she likes to help the others.
Hi, I'm Juan Sebastian Fernandez, and I'm inspired by Barranquilla's story and our people. I'm so proud to be born here. People that inspire me are Nelson Mandela, Odette Gidi, Major Jaime Pumarejo, and Viviana Rincon, and of course, her amazing team. These people inspire me because they are education pioneers. Each one of them are working hard every single day for build a better society and create a consensus among us. It's clear that we need more common sense in our world, and through education we can do it. As Nelson Mandela expressed it, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. All these people are truly inspiration, and one day I would like to be like them.
I would like to share Melanie Martinez's story because she is someone who really inspires me. She suffered from bullying because she had a very singular gap in her front teeth and had a very uncommon style and tastes. But this didn't stop her from chasing her dreams and become a very talented singer, dancer, and director. She really inspires me because when I was younger, I had a couple problems with body issues, and also sometimes people used to bother me because I don't have common tastes, and I wish I get to be as successful as she is.
Hello everyone, my name is Noeli and I want to tell you my history. Well, 2 years ago, depression came to me. As many teenagers, I felt like I was drowning. Nothing was going well for me and anxiety didn't allow me to get up. I thought I would never get out. I thought I would die. And guess what? I'm right here talking to you. I asked for help. I explained what I was feeling. I went to the psychologist and church. But the most important step was believing myself. I forgave myself and mainly I loved myself. 2 years later, I can say I did. I got out of that place. Right now, I'm the person I always want to be. I'm doing what I love. I feel very happy, and every day I find one more reason to live. Nothing is impossible. Remember, after the storm, calm always comes.
My mom is my inspiration. She doesn't let anything to stop her and always tries to achieve what she wants, even though at the beginning it wasn't easy and she wasn't support, but she was made to believe that she couldn't. Luckily, she took off the blindfold and she got over it. The elephant Robe story reminds me of her. The story says that there were a lot of elephants in a camp, and all that was holding them back from escaping the camp was a small piece of rope tied to one of their legs. Among us to the elephant's trainer why they don't escape, and the trainer replied, "When they are very young and much smaller, we use the same size rope to tie them. At that age, it's enough to hold them. As they grow up, they are conditioned to believe they cannot break away. They believe the rope can still hold them, so they never try to break free." The moral of the story is, no matter how much the world tries to hold you back, always continue with the belief that what you want to achieve is possible. Believing you can become successful is the most important step in actually achieving it. Just keep it in mind.
Today, we have a special guest, Jordan Jacobs, experienced conflict analysis and coexistence design practitioner. Using restorative and reconciliation techniques, he aims to cultivate a nurturing environment in which parties can evaluate crises and convert them into meaningful learning experiences. Welcome, Jordan.
So my name is Jordan Jacobs. I am working in the field of conflict resolution in a school district in Northern California, about an hour and a half north of San Francisco. And I do a lot of work. I've done work globally. I've worked in Colombia, Chile, Israel, Palestine as well. I do trainings in conflict resolution, coexistence, and also leadership development. I'm very passionate about working with people who really want to serve others. I think that's a really special calling. I'm very passionate about that. And I'm also very interested in working with people who are having a very difficult time talking to each other. So you can say from, on a level of between students, families, groups, and organizations too, institutions as well. I think there are some similarities because at the end of the day, you're dealing with people. So I like to try to think of this work creatively, and I find creativity to be almost in some ways the opposite of conflict. And so that's kind of how I see my role, and very, very interested in helping people create the space where they can think through some of these issues, these conflicts and arguments, so that they can express themselves better, understand things better, and communicate better. So that's really, really important thing, and not just feel something and express it, but feel something, think about it, talk about it, and then maturely go about communicating it. This is quite an interesting theme, inspiration, and who or what inspires us. And I know certainly sometimes it's a tough question to answer, especially if we're going through a difficult moment, right? Where the idea of inspiration is something that we don't even think about, or maybe we've given up hope, right? This is a tough experience to be in, and for some of us, it's quite a long chapter in life. But I think if we're able to, when we're in a good chapter, focus on people or things or thoughts or ideas that inspire us, when we experience things that are challenging, we can look towards those people or their example to pull us through. I was just listening to something today about failure and how the greatest athletes in the world, they actually really embraced failure. They felt that failure was a great teacher. So, that lesson is a lesson, I believe, from someone like Michael Jordan. So that's a pretty cool thing to think about. But personally, if I had to say who inspires me, I would say something general, to be honest. I think so many people inspire me in different ways. And the thing that I'd like to share is that I appreciate different people for the different skills and contributions that they are making in the world. So if I'm looking or watching a beautiful movie, I'm really inspired by that director's visual skill and talent in cinematography. If I am watching un partido de fútbol, I'm inspired by the ability of the athletes to the jugadores to run and so fast and to play so well. The way that they move physically, that's inspiring. If I watch a professional salsa competition, I'm extremely impressed and inspired by the people dancing. It's incredible. But I try to be open to learning from people in different ways. This goes from writers to public figures to certain people, for example, in my immediate life, in my work life, working in schools, teachers, and certainly students too. This is a really interesting point. So ironically, some of the people that I find inspire me the most are the little ones, or the children who are 6 or 7 or 8 years old, who have so much insight, and they're really quite smart, and that fills me with hope and it gives me purpose that there is as someone older, perhaps you found yourself in this situation being an older brother or sister, that there is purpose in being a leader or a role model for someone else. And apart from people, I think there are other ways we can be inspired or seek inspiration as well, right? This is such an ancient, since the beginning of humankind, this has been a quest to be inspired. I think for many of us, nature might be something that's inspiring. Let's say you're just very inspired by being in forests. The silence, right, of, when the sun starts to fall and you hear all the animals or the insects or whatever it may be. Maybe you're a beach person and you love looking at the waves, That's a beautiful experience. And I don't know, I can't answer that. We can't answer that. No one can answer that question of inspiration but you. What does inspiration mean? And how do, in this case, the waves inspire you? And so apart from nature, I think something else that I'm also very inspired by, and it is connected to people, but in an indirect way, in my opinion, are ideas. So, for example, I'm very, very inspired by ideas such as justice, truth, peace, forgiveness, reconciliation, empathy. So these ideas for me are very inspiring. They really encourage me to step outside of myself and to place myself into a much larger experience of human history. That is my own personal answer. Perhaps there are other ideas that you've read or come across in school that really speak to you. But for me, considering my own interests, those themes are really quite powerful. So in something that inspires me is something that kind of takes me out of myself. And it helps me see and experience and feel life at a much deeper level.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dani Chirinos, English radio correspondent from Castillo de la Alboraya. Today we are here with Jordan Jacobs. Thank you for your time. My first question is, what is something that has inspired you?
This is a very interesting question. What is something that has inspired me? I say interesting because for me, something that inspired me in the past usually inspires me today in the present and will probably inspire me in the future. So when I think of something that inspired me or inspires me or will inspire me, I like to think of it in terms of little things to very big things. So on a small level, I'm very inspired by the small moments, you can say, of peace or tranquility or calm or beauty that you can see, every so often on a daily basis. For example, seeing, the way that the sunlight might touch or interact with the leaves on a tree, seeing the leaves move in the wind, or seeing the birds move or fly a little bit. That to me is very inspiring, because it's very beautiful, and it definitely, in my view, takes a little bit of work to remove ourselves from the craziness of a busy life or a busy day to see those moments, but that definitely inspires me. So natural beauty, or those moments of peace and calm, for sure. And on a bigger level, I was inspired, and I'm also inspired by just thinking about how unique we all are as people, and that we're all part of the great story of human history, and that there were many people, millions of people that came before us, and millions of people, and billions of people rather, that will come after us. And recognizing that we're in the middle of that, and it's a very unique and special time, because, well, it's just, for us now, but we are connected to the past and the future. So that to me is inspiring, because it gives me purpose and meaning. So for me, when I think of what inspires me or inspired me, I think of what inspiration actually means for me. And that's something I would encourage all of us to think about. What does inspiration mean for you? And for me, it's really connected to the idea of meaning or purpose in my life as a professional, and certainly in my life as a human being, and just in life in general.
Wow, that's a really good source of inspiration. So now, how did you deal with the obstacles that you encountered on the way to achieve your goals?
I find this question to be interesting too, because it's, in my view, a trick question. I think that the obstacles never stop. There will always be obstacles. So it's not like something that only happens when you're 15, 16, 17, and 18, and after that, life is easy. If anything, it's the exact opposite. And I don't want to say that, the future is a huge obstacle, but I think life has ups and downs. And I think that if we are able to, as people, accept that reality, that life can be sort of difficult sometimes, it actually makes the challenges a lot easier, because we don't, in my view, overreact to surprises, because that's sometimes, unfortunately, what happens in life in some ways, right? But, then it also encourages us to look for those moments of inspiration, like what I was saying before. So in spite of everything that might be occurring, what things can you find in your life that inspire you? For example, if you've had a difficult day or an argument with someone, and you're sitting down drinking a tintico, and you look outside and see something beautiful, well, that's a wonderful moment that you can really embrace and honor and cherish.
And finally, my last question is, what is the role of English today, and how can it help people achieve their goals?
This is an interesting question too. They're all interesting questions. I think, as many of you know, English is more or less a global language, almost like how I guess French was 100 years ago. Many people internationally speak English as maybe a second or third language. So just in terms of interacting with the world as a global citizen, especially with technology nowadays, especially with how interconnected everyone is now, I think that's really important you could, for example, have a Zoom conversation with someone from Afghanistan, Nigeria, Australia, France, and Austria, for example, in English, if people are able to have proficiency or some type of fluency in English. So that's interesting, just in terms of having a network and making friends, but it also is very important professionally if you are working in a job or a profession that is global. I think English is sort of the global professional working language. So that's really important. There's a second part to this question that's important to address as well. How can it help people achieve their goals, but also how can it help me as a person grow? So I think learning any language, Spanish, French, Arabic, Hebrew, Italian, Swahili, learning another language is a really difficult experience, but it's like a skill that requires discipline and determination and motivation and commitment. These are really important values for life. So if you're able to master a skill really well, English, karate, skateboarding, whatever it may be, but take it really seriously, I think that those values will encourage us to grow and reach our potential as human beings. So English is very useful on a professional, practical level, but also on a personal level too. I hope you've found these comments useful, and have a lovely day.
Thank you, Jordan, for being with us today. In these difficult times, we can convert crises into meaningful experiences.
Welcome to our American Culture section by Centro Cultural Colombo Americano. Today, I am going to introduce you to one of the greatest heroes of all times in America, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia in 1929. At the time, in that part of the country, segregation or the separation of races in places like schools, buses, and restaurants was very common. He experienced racial prejudice from the time he was very young, which inspired him to dedicate his life to achieving equality and justice for Americans of all colors. King believed that peaceful refusal to obey unjust law was the best way to bring about social change. Dr. King was married to Coretta Scott King. Together, they led demonstrators on the fourth day of a historic 5-day march in 1965, starting in Selma, Alabama, where local African Americans had been campaigning for the right to vote. King led thousands of nonviolent demonstrators 54 miles to the state capital of Montgomery. Dr. King was arrested several times during his lifetime. In 1960, he joined black college students in a sit-in at a segregated lunch counter. Presidential candidate John F. Kennedy interceded to have King released from jail, an action that is credited with helping Kennedy win the presidency. It is very important to mention that Dr. Martin Luther King inspired a large crowd with one of his many speeches. Raised in a family of preachers, he is considered one of the greatest speakers in the U.S. history. His most famous speech was "I Have a Dream," delivered at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., during the March on Washington. Dr. Martin Luther King also received the Nobel Prize for Peace in Oslo, Norway on December 10, 1964. Unfortunately, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in April 4, 1968. King was shot by James Earl Ray on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. 52 years later, This great man is one of the most influential people in the world and keeps inspiring kids, teenagers, and adults to make a change and to defend civil rights among all races. The third Monday of January each year, the American calendar commemorates Martin Luther King Day. What did you know about Martin Luther King Jr.? We invite you to do more research about him and share this information with your friends and family. Thank you.
Today, we have heard wonderful stories about inspiration. Hi, Alex. I hope you're doing great. Can you share with us what inspires you and how has a second language helped you achieve your goals?
Hey there, everyone. So speaking about inspirational people, okay. One person that comes to mind for me is one of my best friends from college, whose name is Agnier. Agnier and her family immigrated to the United States when she was a little girl from South Sudan, a country in Africa. She moved to my state, Iowa, and we met at college. We get along really, really well because we share the same ideas, the same sense of humor, and we were involved in some of the same activities, like being in student government. For me, she's such an inspirational person because of the advice she gives and the way that she's able to cross cultural boundaries between her home country, South Sudan, and the United States. Something she always tells me is that everything happens for a reason, and it's so true. I remember when I found out I was moving to Colombia, she was so happy for me because she was moving to Tanzania. At that time, she had told me that these things are happening for great reasons and they're going to lead to wonderful things in our lives. And it was absolutely true. Oh, definitely. I mean, learning Spanish has been such a wonderful thing for me in my life because it's opened so many doors. In terms of jobs, it's helped me get jobs in education and also interpretation. And I definitely would not have been able to get those jobs if I didn't speak both Spanish and English fluently. On the other hand, it's also helped me socially. I've made friends who I get along with because I can speak Spanish and because I understand their jokes. And you know, it's really, really fun when you can understand comedy in another language. Suddenly, you know the greatest jokes and memes from both your own language and the second language that you've learned. Alrighty, everyone, to finish up today, I want to give you an English tip that's really important now that many of our classes are online. When you're in English class and you have a problem with your connection, for example, se te congela la pantalla. What can you say in English? I recommend saying, my screen is frozen. My screen is frozen. Frozen means congelado. When you're in a class and someone forgot to turn on their microphone, you can't hear them, what do you say? I would say, your microphone is off. The opposite of off is on. So on means encendido y off, apagado. Your microphone is off. Tu micrófono está apagado. Lastly, what do you say if you have really bad connection and your video isn't working well or you can't hear people? I would recommend saying, my video is glitching or the connection is bad. Glitch is a verb that means que no corre, está muy pausado. And we can use it when videos don't load very well. So it's really helpful in a case when you're in a call and you can't see or understand the other people very well. It's glitching.
Thank you, Alex, and all the great guests we've had today on English Radio Barranquilla. Thank you, listeners, for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed this great lesson.
Edúcate en Casa, el espacio radial de la Secretaría de Educación de Barranquilla para llevar diversión, aprendizaje y nuevos contenidos a los estudiantes de la ciudad. Escúchanos todos los lunes y miércoles a las 9:30 de la mañana en Itza Radio 106.6 FM para que estemos conectados siempre.